Welcome into Flight Plan, your favorite Jets podcast with myself, Tim McMaster, and Zack Rosenblatt. He covers the Jets for The Athletic. Good episode today. We are going to compare the 2024 Jets roster to what is shaping up to be the 2025 roster, decide if this team is better on paper or worse right now. And Zack, we have a player guest on the show. It's been a while since we had that. Undrafted free agent rookie Dean Clark joining the show. He was early for the interview. We already talked to him earlier today. We were obviously late because we always are. And we made
he was there before us.
Yes,
us.
we were actually on time. He was on like Tom Coughlin time. He was 10 minutes early. He was good though. I think Jets fans are going to like Dean Clark.
Yeah. I think he's a kid. You know, we got the opportunity to talk to him after I wrote my UDFA rankings last week, where I had him second on the list of guys I think have a chance to make it. Largely because I think they need depth at safety, but also like if you look at a scouting report, you watch some of his film, like he's a very interesting player. He's very versatile, and I think he kind of fits what the Jets want out of their safeties. So he's definitely going to be someone to watch, and I think he's going to be somebody that this fan base grows to like in training camp.
We have some receiver news too. We're going to start with that. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that thumbs up. We appreciate that. If you're checking out the audio, we're begging for reviews on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to get those numbers up, because we are still, our feed there is still new, even though we've been doing this show for a long time. We kind of hit the reset button less than a year ago. So all those reviews are great. All right. I teased the receiver news right then. This morning, before the record, the Jags parting ways with Gabe Davis. There's some other stuff I want to get to too, but starting with Davis, we keep talking about it. We'll get to it when we compare the roster of this year and last year, Zack, but this team needs receivers. Is Gabe Davis a possibility?
I mean, as I wrote this as my alter ego in the Discord, I said he's under 30 and he'll be inexpensive. So therefore he's in the mood zone. This is the kind of guy they've been looking at. I think he's really intriguing to me. Like I think Jets fans, there are some that are not very high in him because against the Jets, he struggled. But the Jets have done a pretty good job against Josh Allen, and their corners have been pretty good. He's kind of like they drafted Arian Smith to kind of be like a Gabe Davis type of player for them. He's a deep threat. I was just looking so last year he was injured most of the year. He only played in 10 games. I don't even think he played a lot of snaps in some of them. But in 23, he was one of the best deep threats in the NFL. He had 11 catches down the field, which was 11th most. PFF had him graded as one of the top 10 deep threats. He had 4 touchdowns on deep balls. You're not signing him to be an intermediate area wide receiver. He'd be inexpensive. I haven't heard if they're interested in him necessarily, but I think he makes a lot of sense, especially and we're going to get into this in a minute. If they hypothetically decide to send Allen Lazard to a certain team in Pennsylvania to rejoin his buddy. I think there would be an opening there. And look, like Josh Reynolds and Allen Lazard are not speed demons. They're both kind of here for their blocking even more than their receiving. Josh Reynolds, I think, is a solid player, but he's never had more than a little over 600 receiving yards. Lazard is openly admitted he's not as good without Aaron Rodgers. You have Garrett Wilson who can do a little bit of everything, but it would really help him if you have an actual threat. Like Arian Smith, I know fans weren't high on that pick, but he has the potential to be a deep threat, but it's more potential than a known thing. Whereas I think Gabe Davis, if he's healthy, he's a threat down the field and he can pull some defenders away from Garrett Wilson at the very least. So I would explore it if I was them. Absolutely. He's getting paid pretty good to not play for the Jaguars. So I can't imagine it's going to cost much to sign him. I think he's only 26 still. He knows the AFC East pretty well. I absolutely would pursue it because you also don't have to trade a draft pick to get him. So the compensatory stuff stops anyway now, but it wouldn't have cost that anyway since he was cut. So he's someone I think they should look into. I don't know for sure that they will. They do have, as of now, let's say Lazard does stick around. You have Reynolds, Lazard, Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley, Arian Smith. That's already 4 or 5 guys, and there's not a lot of spots after that. Irv Charles would probably make it if he's healthy as a special teams guy. So, and Tyler Johnson's also on the roster as well. So I think it can't hurt to at least bring in competition. And I think Gabe Davis would have a chance to be the number 2 receiver on this team. If you can get him at a cheap price, I think it's worth it. I don't know what his health is. That's a big part of this. If he's not healthy, then no, don't get him. But If he's healthy, I think he's a solid player.
All right. As for Lazard, obviously he's kind of untradeable with his old contract, but his new contract is kind of a different story, making significantly less money. Would he really rejoin Rodgers again?
Would he? I think yes, he would.
He
But
would.
But I think the Jets value him more than I expected, just the way they raved
Yeah.
about him at the owners' meetings. So I still lean toward him being on the team. I saw Tyrod Taylor was honored for his charity work yesterday. He had a bunch of his teammates there, and Allen Lazard was one of them, which I thought was notable. I believe Lazard's been there for OTAs, so he's a part of this team. And until they get somebody else, or if they get somebody else, like they kind of need him right now. So, like, which is a crazy thing to say if you had asked me a year ago, a month ago, whatever, that they need Allen Lazard, but they didn't make any moves at receiver, and I don't think they're going to sign Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen types. So this leaves them, without many options unless you sign a Gabe Davis. So, and there's another option we can talk about in a second, which has kind of been floating around. But yeah, I lean towards him not becoming a Steeler, but would it surprise me if the Jets traded Allen Lazard to the Steelers for like a 6th-round pick? Like, no, it wouldn't. And if you can get anything for him at this point, then sure.
All right, that other player back into the Aaron Rodgers universe just because it's a Packer, but Romeo Doubs. The Packers have the opposite problem of the Jets. They have too many receivers in their receiving room, and so there's the idea that somebody's got to go, and Dobbs seems to be the one most people are speculating about. So what about the Jets making that move to trade for a receiver?
Dobbs, if he was available, is really intriguing to me. I don't know what his relationship was like with Rodgers. He was one of the young receivers that Rodgers got frustrated with a lot, I think.
He's only 25 now.
He's only 25. So. He's pretty prolific as a touchdown scorer. He has 15 touchdowns and only in the last 3 years. He had 4 last year. 600 yards. I think he has frustrated Packers coaches at times. My impression is they might not be like eagerly looking to trade him until they see how these rookies are, because they drafted 2 rookies, Savion Williams and Matthew Golden, pretty early. But Christian Watson's coming off a torn ACL, I believe. So I know they have a lot of bodies in there, but I think they need to see where Christian Watson is in his recovery too before you just give away a talented young receiver. I don't know what it would cost. I'd be interested in Romeo Doubs at the right price, though. But I don't necessarily see him getting traded yet unless the Jets were willing to give up like a higher pick than the Packers were seeking, kind of thing. So I wouldn't anticipate that happening anytime soon. But again, he's like an intriguing one later in the summer in training camp. If the Jets haven't made another move, if the Packers like those rookies, if Christian Watson's on his way back, he'd be an interesting one. Because that's an unknown, I would personally sign Gabe Davis, but yeah, I would lean towards Dobbs not becoming a Jet, but maybe Dobbs becomes a Steeler for all I know. Like maybe the Steelers, maybe Rodgers did really like him and they traded him to Pittsburgh. Rodgers hasn't signed with the Steelers yet, by the way, which is hilarious. Right. Even funnier because the NFL schedule is going to be announced next week. I think a week from today. So we'll have to do a schedule pod actually. A week from today that'll get announced, and Rodgers still hasn't said if he's playing or not. And the NFL wants to know, because I wonder if they're going to gamble and say, okay, we're going to assume the Steelers are signing him. Let's give them a bunch of prime time. I imagine they'd want Jet Steelers to be prime time, maybe week 1 Monday Night Football, as we've talked about. But it would be peak Rodgers / Jets if they make an assumption and then Rodgers like, actually, I'm retiring. And then you have to watch Steelers, Jets. Steelers roster is, as I think, now that they traded Pickens, especially talent-wise, their roster's kind of weird right now. So
yeah, the streak is alive of never having a losing season with Tomlin there.
He's going to be testing we're going to be finding out how good of a coach he is this year.
Yeah.
I will say with the Pickens thing, I do think 3rd round is not crazy value for a talented player, but historically when Tomlin trades away a receiver, there's usually a pretty good reason and they don't really work out elsewhere. But he's someone I would have taken. Even the Jets, honestly, I would have considered taking a gamble on him. The problem is he's in a contract year also, and he's kind of a bit of a head case, but he's really, really talented. And like him, and the idea of him and Garrett Wilson would have been sick. But Cowboys are investing in receiver. I saw they wanted to draft T-Mac out of Arizona, and when he was picked by the Panthers, they pivoted and they tried to make this trade happen. So I'm very curious to see how that works out.
All right. Are the Jets better or worse than 2024 on paper? Obviously, there's a lot more than on paper, right? How the coaching staff is able to inspire these players, how they go out and all that thing, stuff like that. The ESPN recently had its rankings, power rankings out. They have the Jets 30th. So in ESPN's mind, the Jets are worse because they were not the 30th best team in the NFL in 2024. We're going to go position by position, Zach. I think we can skip receiver now. We just kind of went deep on that, but
And I
we'll
think
go
it's pretty
position by
obvious
position.
that it's. I mean, if you factor in
It's a
Devontae
downgrade.
Adams,
Yes.
it's a downgrade for sure. I mean, Devontae,
Yeah.
say what you want about his relationship with Aaron, he was very good. He had like 900 yards in 11 games. He's a very good player.
Yeah. Yeah, and they lose that, and so far, not a sizable replacement. All right, we'll start at quarterback. Aaron Rodgers to Justin Fields, and I was surprised, and you wrote about this stuff on The Athletic. If people are subscribers, they can jump in and read a little bit more. You actually have an upgrade to Justin Fields, the way you wrote it out.
So it's all context related. Like as I said in there, I don't know that anybody in the NFL would rank Fields ahead of Rodgers as like a quarterback right now. But context, like, so Aaron Rodgers, yes, we've talked about this. I won't repeat all of the points we've said and everybody has said. His numbers aren't as good as they looked last year, Rodgers, but he had 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. If you got those numbers out of Justin Fields, you're probably a playoff team. But there's the factor of, number one, Rodgers refused to run the ball. He would check out or runs consistently, refused to throw the ball downfield, was banged up for half the year, and by the end of the year was funneling targets to Devontae Adams even when he wasn't open. So, like, there's a lot of factors there. And then the flip side of that is, yes, Justin Fields needs to prove he can be an accurate quarterback. He has to become a player that he hasn't really been in the NFL in terms of passing the ball, but he's really mobile. If not the most mobile, he's one of the top 3 most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, best running quarterbacks. The statistics back that up. He has as many 10 plus yard runs as, I think he's in like the top 20 of all like runners over the last 3 years. And that includes like only half a season basically playing in Pittsburgh, or less than a half a season. So very good runner, and he has really good arm strength. Like, he's pretty high up there when he was in Chicago for throwing the ball downfield, the attempts he took. The turnover worthy plays he had on those deep passes were as low as anybody. So he's going to be willing to take shots down the field. And then for what the Jets want to be with Aaron Glenn, they want to be a running team. They want to run the ball a lot. That would have been the case, I think, no matter who the quarterback was. But I think Aaron Glenn was targeting mobile quarterbacks. Like, he wanted that. That was everything you heard this offseason, was he wanted a mobile quarterback. So whether that was going to be Tyrod or Justin Fields, or if they drafted somebody or found somebody else in free agency or whatever, they want a quarterback who can lead a rushing attack. They're going to run the ball. I said this in the article. They were last in rushing attempts last year. It would not surprise me if we're talking about this at the end of the season. They're number 1 in rushing attempts. So while I think in terms of pure quarterback play, you could argue it's a downgrade, I think for what the Jets need and for what Justin Fields' ceiling is, which is high, I think. His floor is lower than Rodgers, but I think his ceiling is higher than the 42-year-old Rodgers you're going to see in Pittsburgh or in an ayahuasca tent this year. So I think there's potential. There's also potential for it to go bad, and we're talking next year about how they need to draft a quarterback in the top 5. But this was the gamble they were going to take.
If it goes bad, they'll have that top 5 pick.
Like I said, like they're banking on Justin Fields being a player he hasn't been yet, which is kind of what happened with Sam Darnold. Different kinds of players, but the idea of like a reclamation project. I think Baker Mayfield showed more talent, not talent, but he showed more production and success early in his career. Then he kind of faded, and then he came back, had the great renaissance. Maybe Geno's a good comparison, where he didn't really ever look that good in New York. Like, he showed some flashes, and getting punched in the face didn't help him. But like they're banking on Justin Fields being a reclamation project. And as we've talked about a lot, if it doesn't work out, you're not tied to him for that much money next year, and he can be a good backup for whoever they draft. And if he's bad, then you wind up drafting a good quarterback early. And if he's good, you're, if not making the playoffs, you're at least making progress toward becoming a playoff team.
All right, running back. I mean, the crew is back, right? I mean,
yeah.
Brees is back, Braylon's back, Isaiah Davis is back. And then you add Donovan Edwards into the mix. So you got to feel like it's a better group in 2025, although I would imagine what we see on the field will be pretty much the same.
Yeah, the same, though I think it's going to be a heavier rotation, at least at the start, because like we've talked about, I think they were trying to make Brees, they were trying to motivate him when they made their comments about this is a three-headed monster is how they view it. But second year Braylon Allen, I think he'll be a lot better with some experience. Remember, he was the youngest player in the NFL last year, like when he was drafted. The adjustment was a little steeper than I expected because he showed some flashes, but he didn't quite make the impact I thought he would when we watched him in training camp, where I thought he was so good. Isaiah Davis kind of surprised me. Donovan Edwards has some potential as a pass catcher if he sticks around. And I think Brees will be a lot better in an offense where they're not going to check out of runs, in an offense where he can run confidently behind a better offensive line. So just purely by bringing these young players back, I think that group will be better. You're on mute, Tim.
It was for everyone's benefit. There was a siren going by.
Perfect.
All right, tight ends. We skipped receiver. When you look at tight end, obviously you're relying on a rookie, right? If this is going to be a better unit, Mason Taylor is going to have a big rookie year.
Yeah, like at quarterback, it's a projection more than a guarantee. Like I'm higher on Tyler Conklin than maybe like, I don't know how the fan base feels about him at large. I think he was a solid player, but Mason Taylor has the potential to be better right away, if not better than as good. And then you have a 20-year-old tight end who's getting 500 yards and 4 touchdowns or whatever. So he has the ability, and they're kind of banking on him to step in right away as Justin Fields is like number 2 or number 3 target in the passing game. It's a steep ask for a 20-year-old rookie. So like I said, there's no guarantee it works out, but you're basically swapping out Tyler Conklin for Mason Taylor. Jeremy Ruckert's sticking around. Hopefully he's better as a blocker. If not, he'll be a free agent next year and everyone will move on. And you're swapping Kenny Yeboah for Stone Smart, who I think is an intriguing young player who kind of came on at the end of last season with the Chargers. And you feel better about him as a backup than when it looked like he might be their starter for a minute there. But Stone Smart is like an alternative passing option, an athlete, and maybe even like a wildcat quarterback option because he played quarterback, I think, in college. He's an intriguing guy. So I like this group better for their potential than maybe like anything guaranteed. So you could check back at the end of the year and it could have gone poorly, but I think this is going to be a good group.
I just want to comment on this comment really quick about the sirens around. I'm sure people, if you're a regular, at least
since can't wait.
Not since the beginning of the pod, because I did move at one point, but yes, it is not a crime-ridden area, but there is a hospital 3 blocks away. So that's where all the noise comes from. And I do my best to ride the mute button on here. It's fun on Zoom calls too for work and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a constant, makes me sad every time I hear it because it's an ambulance. It's not a police car or fire truck. So it's bad news in general.
The sirens only go off when I have a bad take, I think, is what happens.
All right. Offensive line. A lot of the same, which is great. And then you throw in a first-round pick and Armand Membo into the mix. You got to feel like 2025 is going to be a better unit.
I pointed this out in the article, and I got some pushback and a comment on the article. I think it's important to remember how hyped the fan base was, and we were, about this offensive line last year. People were high on the Tyron Smith signing. You can like look back on it and pretend like, oh, why would we be high on this aging guy? People were excited about that. He was
coming off a Pro Bowl season.
He was coming off a Pro Bowl season. Yeah. Clearly, he wound up being banged up and pretty bad overall, I would say. Now he's retired. Morgan Moses, again, another one everybody's excited about. Great leader. I think he absolutely battled through some really hard injuries, but I think that did affect his play ultimately. And so that's why when you look at like the grades and the numbers, the offensive line wasn't that great. So anyone who's pushed back at the idea that this offensive line is going to be great, like it starts there. They were inconsistent. I don't think they like playing for Keith Carter. And so you're getting a new coaching staff in. This is a young group, 5 really solid at minimum offensive linemen. I don't know how he's going to be as a rookie, but if he can step in and be solid as a rookie, if not more than that, like that's a really good offensive line. I think it's going to be a really good run blocking offensive line, which is important. And then the depth is better in my mind because you have Josh Myers, who I would argue is one of the best interior backups in the NFL. He's a starting center for the Packers for like 4 or 5 years. Chuks Okorafor, did not like him as a starting option. I think he's really interesting option as a swing tackle. He obviously has to overcome whatever happened in New England last year, but before that, he started a lot of games for the Steelers on both sides. Carter Warren maybe is better with a new coaching staff. Max Mitchell has some versatility. Xavier Newman's back. So I like this group as a whole. I like the youth, and I like the future of it. I just think if it can be as good as the talent on the roster, or even if it's just 5 solid offensive linemen, even if there's no stars, like this is going to be a team that's going to run the ball a lot, and you have the group to do that. So, if you want to be high on the Jets in 2025, it starts on the offensive line, frankly. Like they haven't had a good offensive line in a long time here. And that makes such a big difference. Like you can be not as talented around the offensive line and make it work because they're just opening up holes for the running game and the quarterback and all that stuff.
All right, let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive end, you say even. Jermaine Johnson's health is a big thing here, right? I mean, if he is the Jermaine Johnson from 2023, it adds a lot to this unit.
Well, if you had asked, like, I don't remember when the Hassan Reddick holdout started, but if you had asked before the Hassan Reddick holdout this time last year about that defensive end group, you would have said it's one of the best in the NFL, one of the most talented. It could not have gone worse, like top to bottom. Number one, the trading away John Franklin Myers for nothing was arguably one of the worst moves, if not the worst move of the Joe Douglas era, because he gave him away for nothing. Anyway, so then you have Hassan Reddick, who not only holds out half the season, but is terrible when he gets back. Jermaine Johnson tears his Achilles in week 2. So what you have is Will McDonald kind of emerging unexpectedly and having a great year, 10.5 sacks, I think like 24 QB hits. But you have Michael Clemens playing 60% of the snaps. You have Eric Watts, Tack McKinley, Brady McGregor. I think there was someone else I'm blanking on. Like all these guys that should at minimum be like bottom of the depth chart. Like maybe Eric Watts can become something. I think there's some talent there, but like this is not a good group, not a good depth. But you look at this year and I don't feel great about the depth now. You have Jermaine, again, they're banking on him being the player he was before, coming off an Achilles. You never know how somebody's going to handle coming off an Achilles. Like that's a hard injury to come back from. He had it
that
early
position
enough
too, where you're really pushing off that.
He had it early enough that you hope that it'll be good. And he's an athlete. He's strong. He's motivated. I think he's going to be a leader on this team, but you don't know what you're going to get. Will McDonald should be even better this year, but he still leaves something to be desired as a run stopper. Like he still has to improve in that area. And then the backups, Michael Clemens is still around. They signed Rashad Weaver, kind of exclusively a pass rusher. They drafted Tyler Barron, kind of exclusively a pass rusher. Are you banking on Eric Watts emerging? Or, I'd feel better about this group if they go and sign like Zadarius Smith, who has some experience with Aaron Glenn. But as the group sits right now, I don't feel great about it. The talent is there. If Jermaine Johnson's healthy, it's a big if. If Jermaine Johnson or Will McDonald get hurt, there are very few positions on this roster I feel worse about if you lose one of your starters. So, and the defensive line was the root of how good this defense was the last couple of years. Not as much last year, but the 2 years before that. Like the D-line was dominant up front, especially with Quinnen and the defensive ends, and it helped the secondary do what they did. So I have concerns about this group. We can get into the defensive tackles next, but the defensive ends, the depth is a problem, which is why I have it even, because the defensive ends wound up being pretty bad last year overall.
Yeah, as we go through this, there's kind of a theme here where a lot of the offense is potentially better and a lot of the defense potentially worse. Defensive tackle, Solomon Thomas gone, Javon Kinlaw, while maybe not missed, also gone. 2024, though, probably on paper still a better unit.
Yeah, I mean, this is the unit in 2025. I think they're banking on Leonard Taylor taking a leap forward. I viewed their decision not to draft any defensive tackles as maybe an endorsement of how they feel about Leonard Taylor, who showed some flashes. He was somebody the fan base is really high on. If he can take a step forward as a pass rusher, then I'm going to eat my words on this group. But this should be a better run stopping group. You have Derek Nottie, you have Byron Cowart, and they signed J. Tufele. Like these are guys that are purely run stoppers. But the pass rushing next to Quinnen Williams, I think there's not really any guarantees there. So Javon Kinlaw was not good last year, but he did have some production as a pass rusher. 4.5 sacks, I think 6 QB hits, 30 pressures. You need to replace that production somehow, and you need to make life a little bit easier for Quinnen, because when he has a better defensive tackle next to him, he's able to eat a little more because he's not getting double and triple teamed as much. And I don't see these guys they have right now as threats to help him in that way. And as I mentioned with the defensive ends, there's not really huge threats on the outside, outside of the starters. So Quinnen Williams need better help than he's gotten the last couple of years. And hopefully one of these guys emerges, but there's no guarantees.
Linebacker, CJ Mosley, the biggest name that's gone. Yeah. He wasn't classic CJ Mosley in 2024, still a leadership guy. Have they done enough to fill the gap?
Yeah. ultimately he barely played from the last year, so it's hard to
Right.
even count him. But I think he brought more than just what it was on the field. Like we've talked about it a lot. I won't go too much into it again, but they're going to miss his presence. This is a team that needs people to emerge as leaders because they got rid of all of them. So CJ is gone. The depth at linebacker, like at defensive end, a defensive tackle, is poor. You have Jamie Sherwood and Quincy Williams, as good of a pairing in the NFL. Quincy's due for a new contract. But behind that, you have Jamin Davis, Francis Mauigoa. You have Zaire Barnes and Marcelino McCrary Ball, maybe like an undrafted rookie. Like this is not like if Quincy or Jamin Sherwood gets hurt, you're in a lot of trouble again. So I have real concerns about depth in the front seven on defense. The back end, I feel a little better about the depth, but the front seven is concerning.
All right, let's move to the back. A cornerback, DJ Reed gone. They brought in multiple players, though, to potentially replace Brandon Stevens, obviously signed a free agency. Azaria Thomas, the big draft pick that a lot of people have praised for the value they got at that pick. But DJ Reed was really good.
Yeah. Like, I think this group has the potential to be better than the one from last year and the last couple of years. There's other factors. Like Brandon Eccles is gone, and he was a crucial depth piece because he would step in and get picks quite often, and he was a good special teams player. So I think you do miss him. I think Brandon Stevens is someone this coaching staff really likes. They like his play style and the kind of athlete and like the size he brings. But he gave up the second most receiving yards in the NFL last season. Michael Carter II, a healthy Michael Carter II really should bump this group up quite a bit because he was banged up all of last year. You brought Isaiah Oliver back, solid nickel depth. He can help at safety. Zaire Thomas, potential-wise, should be a really good player. He probably needs a little development. I don't know if he's going to be ready to make a huge impact right away. Quantez Stigger is a year older. Like, there's definitely talent in this group, and you have Sauce Gardner, who I think should have a better year than he did last year with a little less pressure on him. But ultimately, DJ Reed, whatever you want to say about the year he had last year, I know he didn't have any picks, and I know fans got mad at him for openly talking about how he was looking forward to free agency. But he was really, really good for this team. Like, I don't think time should make his tenure age poorly because I think he was really, really good. And when you had the trio of those three guys healthy, it was as good of a cornerback trio in the NFL. So if Brandon Stevens can live up to his contract, then you're looking really, really good. And I like the depth on this group to the point where I don't know, like, will Quantez Stiggers make it? Will Jarek Bernard-Converse make the team? But I think the talent is really, really good and has a high ceiling, but there's still potential for some of these guys to fall off.
All right, finally, safety. Andre Sisco comes in. Tony Adams gone. Malachi Moore drafted. How do you see this one? Ashton Davis gone.
Plus Dean Clark coming in.
Dean Clark.
Yeah, yes. Didn't mention him yet. But I think this group should be better than the one last year. Chuck Clark was fine as a veteran. I think Tony Adams had his bumps. He'll be better as a third safety than a starter if that gets to the case. I'm really high on Malachi Moore. I think he could be a starter on day one, and I think Aaron Glenn probably envisions him as like a Brian Branch type. Andre Sisco had a down year in Jacksonville. The year before, he had like 4 picks. So if you get a playmaker at one spot, you get a movable piece at the other, and then you rotate guys like Tony Adams, Dean Clark, Isaiah Oliver into the group. Like I think you feel pretty good about that group, and I think it should be better if they live up to their talent.
All right, so if you go through the positional breakdown, you actually have 2025 better in 5 categories, 2024 4 categories, and then defensive end is a split. We didn't do kickers, but that's all right. So yeah, better roster 2025.
Yeah, well, and as I put in my summary, I think the biggest, I think the roster overall is like pretty close to what it was last year. I don't think it's appreciably better or worse. The season kind of hinges on the coaching. Like I've talked about it a lot. Like all their moves they made this offseason were predicated on the idea that Aaron Glenn is going to get the most out of his players. In Detroit, he did that. In Detroit, he overcame injuries. They didn't crumble in the face of adversity. These are all attributes the Jets did not have the last couple of years, especially last year. So if Aaron Glenn is a better coach and Steve Wilkes and Tanner Engstrand are better coordinators, or at very least Tanner Engstrand, like that's the big one. If he's better than Hackett Downing, then they'll be better. Like, do I think that means 9-10 wins? No. Will they get more than 5 wins? If this coaching staff is good, this team should get 7 wins, 8 wins, whatever. Like, I think they have the ability to do that at the very least. Like, I don't know that I view this as a playoff team, but I view this as a team could be like it was in 2022. You had LaFleur as the coordinator. they were real upstart. They upset some teams. They got off to a great start, fell apart at the end. But I think they have the ability to, show some potential for the future and feel good going into next offseason.
All right. I think that would make Jets fans in general happy if this team's in games, winning some games, pulling some upsets, stay in the wild card race at least till the end, make things interesting. We will see if they are better on paper. All right. That brings us to the interview that we've been teasing. Let's get to Dean Clark. We are super excited to be joined by Dean Clark, as we talked about off the top of the show, undrafted free agent joining the Jets. Adding to that secondary, and obviously this is the new coaching staff that is really focused on that position because of their background, Aaron Glenn and all of that. But I guess we'll start here. Dean, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, we're going to take it back to begin this interview, and we'll get into a lot of stuff. We'll talk about the Jets, but we wanted to go back to your college days and let you reminisce a little bit on this one interception that went viral. We're going to take a look, take a listen, and then I want to get your take on this and how it all played out.
Here comes Mateer looking downfield, end zone, picked off. There to take it away. Dean Clark comes through.
Incredible interception at Fresno State. And if you're listening to the pod and not watching on YouTube, it's in the end zone. He cuts off the receiver, makes the interception, does a somersault basically, and somehow lands in the end zone for the interception. Just kind of take us through the play.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those flow state type of plays where, I don't even know how it happened myself once you go up there and go get the ball and you're diving and turning. But I got a pretty good read from the quarterback. He had looked at the receiver, looked at the sideline, checked the slot fade. So I got a good jump on that. And then from there, once I went to get the ball, it's like I said, it's one of those things. You're in the flow state. You're just playing ball at that point. So,
do you after it happened, and you saw the clip for the first time, did you realize how it looked even, or were you just kind of in the moment? I'm sure, but did you realize how it looked?
After the game, so I was like, that really is a crazy play. I didn't know it was that insane. Once I did it, I just, like I said, just kind of blink out in that moment. And I just know I made the play and we got the ball back. So.
Awesome.
There's a clip on Instagram where it shows the play with the call, and then it goes to this a freeze frame of the crowd, and it just moves around to all the people in the crowd's reactions to the incredible interception. It's just a fun clip on Instagram.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So we were talking to you a little bit before the pod. You actually showed up early, which is funny for us because we're always late to start our pods, so we appreciated that. But yeah, I mean, I know you're not in New Jersey yet, but how much are you looking forward to your first NFL practice and getting over to New Jersey and kind of getting to experience all this?
I'm ecstatic. I mean, it's what I dreamed of since I was a kid, to get an opportunity to play in the NFL, to join the NFL locker room and get in, learn the playbook, meet the guys, get all the staff in the building. That's what I'm most excited for, build those relationships and ultimately put a great product out on the field.
You've been to New York before? Or is this going to be your first time, or?
No, I've been in New York a couple times.
You've been in New York. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Obviously the draft process, I think, is different for everyone, but we'd love to hear, your take on just going through going from the end of the season through the draft and then being signed, and just what that process was like for you.
It's a fun process. It's a long one. It's a lot of unknown to it. Right as soon as my last bowl game, I think I played our bowl game on the 23rd of December, went home for Christmas, and then I went to go train in Florida on the 1st of January. So quick turnaround. And then I'm out there all the way until my pro day, which was in March. So I went from Ohio to Florida, back to California to do my pro day. And then after pro day, went back to Ohio. And I've been here since training. But it's a fun process. Got to talk to a lot of different teams, a lot of different, interviews, tests, Zoom meetings, stuff like that. So it's busy for sure. But, I mean, that's what you want. You want teams to talk to you. If they're not, then that's probably not what you want. So I had fun doing it, and I think I found the best opportunity with the Jets.
I want to get into the draft weekend, but first I'm curious. You said you talked to a lot of teams. Did you talk to the Jets before you signed with them? Were they a team that was interested in the process?
Yeah. I talked to the Jets, and then I had a visit with them as well.
Oh, nice.
So definitely was a good connection with that whole staff and organization.
What do you remember about your visit with them?
Just about the energy, Coach AG, his vision and plan for the team and the culture shift and stuff like that resonated with me, and just want to turn around that organization and win some football games.
So take me through your draft weekend. What was that weekend like? Like, how hard was it having to sit through and not get drafted? And then I know, for undrafted rookies, it really starts like before the end of the draft even. So I'm curious, like, how crazy that process was for you, both the emotions of, wanting to get drafted and not, while also having to pick your next team and all that stuff. Like, what was that whole process like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, to watch, all 200 and
Yeah.
I don't know, it was 57 picks, 60 picks, 260 picks, and not hear your name called because, ultimately you want that. But
Yeah.
like I said, my dream was never to be, a draft pick. My dream was to play in the NFL, and I still have that opportunity to conquer that dream. And, that's ultimately what I thought about the entire time. Obviously, it's tough, but, as soon as the draft ends, you talking to teams trying to figure out the best fit for you, and then seize that opportunity.
How stressful is that, like picking your next destination, especially because I know you had multiple teams coming after you? Like, how, because you have to kind of decide pretty quickly, I imagine. So like, how hard was that in the moment?
It's tough, but me and my agent, we had talked about it before the draft. You prepare for all the scenarios. So if you get picked, great. If you don't, you have the list of your best fits, where you fit in at, and ranking that in order depending on. And then as the draft goes, depending on what teams take, what they don't take, and how that whole process goes, who is the best fit for you. And so it's not too stressful as it seems, because there's a little bit of parameters in there, but it went well.
Yeah, I know you still obviously you need to prove to the Jets and make the team and all that stuff. Like, nothing's guaranteed, but like, what does it mean for you? I know this is your dream. Like, as a kid coming from Ohio, kind of getting a shot here to even make the NFL. Like, when you what's it going to be like when you put on that Jets helmet this weekend? That kind of thing.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. It's an honor. Like I said, been dreaming of that, and an opportunity. So I got an opportunity. I'll get to put on the helmet, put on a jersey, and go prove myself, which I can't ask for anything more because I'm a competitor. I want to compete. I almost feel like I'm happy I went undrafted because it's just more of a mountain to climb. So.
Yeah, I saw a video from your hometown on, I think it was Facebook, where it was a bunch of kids from like the Boys and Girls Club sending you like messages of support and stuff. Like, how cool is it to have the level of support you do back home?
Oh, that's awesome. I love my hometown, love Massillon, Ohio, big football community. They supported me my whole career from high school to college, from Little League football to high school to college to now the pros. So it's awesome to have them and be a representation of the city.
Is there when you look at the NFL, either the NFL now or, the NFL of old, is there a player that you either idolized growing up, or if not that, like a player that you kind of model your game after?
I wouldn't say. I'm a big fan of, taking a little bit from everybody. So I'll watch tape or watch old clips of old players and see what they do well, whether that's in the game or if that's off the field stuff, how they handle their business that way in the community, stuff like that. So I've never had one individual player, but, just like to look at guys that are doing it right, playing a long career, impacting the community, seeing what they're doing in all aspects and taking little gems here and there from them.
So like what kind of safety would you say the Jets are getting? Like, what would you say you bring to the table as a safety?
Just competitor and consistent. I think my biggest attribute is between my ears. Get back there, get reads from the quarterback, make calls, that type of thing. Just the football IQ and intelligence. I want it to pop on the film and show up each play.
How much? I know one of the things that pops up a lot with you. I know you played like all over the field at Fresno. Like, how much pride do you take in that, your ability to line up everywhere, and how much of a kind of a weapon does that make you on defense in the backfield like that?
Yeah, I take a lot of pride in that, just knowing the whole defense, not just knowing one spot and limiting myself in that capacity. Because once you're aware of, how the whole defense operates and how each individual person affects the next, it allows you to play faster and, put the defense in a better position. So, and also makes me, more likely to have a shot to stick around if I can learn how to play multiple positions and make myself available to the coaching staff.
With that, not just like being able to play all over the defense, but you also played, quite a bit of special teams. Talk about that side of it. Obviously, when you come into a team and you're trying to prove yourself, especially as an undrafted free agent, that ability to play special teams can go a long way. So just talk about your thoughts on, being part of the special teams, and is it something you enjoy doing?
Oh yeah, I love playing special teams. My whole college career, I played all the special teams. Even when I was full-time starter, I still was starting on at least 2 to 3 special teams. Punt team, punt return, kickoff, even got kick return reps. So I like playing it because it's physical. That's kind of what I grew up on, is just being physical. That's the most pure form of football. It's just you and another guy, and you got to run through his face. So I enjoy that part. I look forward to, making a contribution in that area.
Now that you are going to the, so actually I wanted to circle back. You talked about, why you picked the Jets or how you were choosing between these teams and stuff. Like what was it about the Jets that made you want to pick them? And how much of an appeal? You have Aaron Glenn, but not only him, they have multiple guys that played in the NFL for a long time. Dre Bly's and the defensive coaching staff, Chris Harris. Like how much was all that appeal for you?
It was a big impact. Talked to Coach Harris a lot. When I went my visit, I obviously got to talk to Coach Wilkes and AG and the whole staff, and just sitting down with them, seeing how the organization is and how they want it to be and what type of impact they want to make. Like I said, it resonated with me, and I felt like I could come in and, help in some capacity to help them make a change.
Awesome. And are you familiar with Sauce? Or are you excited to get a chance to practice with him a little bit?
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Awesome.
So Dane Brugler does draft write-ups for The Athletic. I don't know if you're familiar with it. He has this big thing. It's called The Beast. It's very popular among just really the whole NFL universe. Wanted to read what he wrote about you, Dean, and see what your take is on it. If he was right, if he's way off the mark, so we can get back to him and let him know how he did. So he said, Clark aligned all over the defense from the box to single high. He reads the backfield action well to anticipate and react, and will lay traps for quarterbacks in coverage. His decisiveness as a player really stands out, as it allows him to explode and finish. His alley angles are generally sharp, and he chases with pace so as to not overrun the ball carrier. Overall, Clark is a rangy physical defender with an interchangeable skill set who can provide depth at multiple spots and shine on special teams.
Sounds good to me. Hear any cons?
I know there was no negatives in there.
No write-ups with a con. I'll take it.
Awesome. So what do you want to, as you go into this weekend and you start practicing, I think Friday you guys start, right? It's like Friday and Saturday. What do you want to prove to this new group, this new staff? Like, what do you want to show this weekend?
Just come in, like I said, learn faces, learn names, learn the playbook, show that, I'm fully in, I'm bought in, and to make an impact.
Awesome.
Do you get to pick a number, or do they give you a number, or do you know?
I'm sure they'll give me a number.
Yeah. All right, Dean, thanks so much for joining us, man. We appreciate
thanks,
it.
man.
I appreciate you guys.
All right, that was Dean Clark. Zach, any final thoughts before we say goodbye on that interview? Zack is gone because I told him I was just going to wrap things up. All right, we are going to say goodbye. We will be back next week with a schedule release episode to go through the schedule, and we can really decide how this Jets team in 2025 could be better or worse from 2024. Thanks, everybody, for joining the stream or listening later. We'll talk to you all soon.